Welcome back to Second Breakfast and our ongoing coverage of Diablo IV. I'm very happy for the second time in a row to share the good news. How good is this season, Maggie?
This season was great. I really liked it. I went into it with all the skepticism because Diablo IV has disappointed me so many times, and so I was a little nervous. I've just learned to set my expectations a bit lower than they were, a year ago. However, the last season was pretty great, and right? Is that the one that was good?
Yes, I think we can officially say the game is becoming consistent.
Yes.
Season 3 was the one with the seneschal traps that we hated.
Ugh, the season of the construct.
Yeah, so season 1 you didn't play. It was
Nope.
fine. The campaign that we did with all those episodes, that was very inconsistent.
Yeah.
Season 1, fine. Season 2 was Season of Blood.
Loved
with the
season
vampire
2.
theme.
I thought that was fantastic. So then the hopes were high.
3,
and then we hit 3.
bad.
It was rough.
4, best the game has ever been. Season 5, I thought when I first started playing it, oh, okay, this is just sort of like a victory lap. This is the same as the last season. It's not. It's way better. So I think I can comfortably say this is the best Diablo 4 has ever been. But I can also say it's the best Diablo has ever been.
It's pretty great. I had a really good time with it. And at this point, you'd think I'd be Diablo'd out. But I think having these breaks in between seasons has helped me. And then every time I get in, I'm really excited. And this kept my interest for a long time. I'm excited to talk about that.
Yeah, so we're playing with our familiar structure that we've used for all these episodes, just as a little preview. We're going to do a little state of the game, talk about the campaign, then a class update, and then some wrap-up questions. So starting with the state of the game, I need to take a little moment, spotlight, center stage. I need a little bit of an aside, because after we did our last episode, which is about season 4, we both ran Necros that season.
That's right.
I just got the bug.
I
had a great time playing with you, but I couldn't stop.
You went all in.
I ran my bone necromancer, Gurgle, that's with an H. You can guess where it is. I ran Gurgle to level 100.
Which you've never done in D4.
No, it takes a lot of time.
It does.
But by golly, is it fun. It was fun the whole time.
And you were doing it every night.
Oh, yeah.
For 2 or 3 hours at a time.
Yeah, and I was very clinical about it. So all the activities that I was getting into, I would get all the tiers of the rewards. I was exhaustive. And it meant that I really had to learn all the systems. And the game is... We'll talk about this later, but the game is pushing you into those systems more than it ever has. So I felt like I finally fully explored the loot and item game. I was masterworking sacred items. I was tempering and adding little qualities and buffs to all of my gear.
Right, because that was Loot Reborn, right? That's what that season was.
Right,
so it was all about these new systems and new and improved systems.
Real build crafting.
Yeah.
And the difficulty, I cranked as high as I could go. I believe I was on World Tier 4 by the end of it.
Wow.
I was running Helltides just endlessly. I think I did 100 Nightmare Dungeons. I mean,
That's so many.
it was a problem, and they take a while sometimes.
Yeah.
And I got the full rewards in all these activities. It was a great time. I couldn't believe the game locked me in that hard for that long. And obviously, when you get to level 97, it's a bit of a grind to get the last
because you're I
couple.
just want to get there. Yeah.
But it was worth it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
every time I scrolled past that character to select my new one for the new season, I have fond memories. It's purely a good experience.
This is me just not knowing anything. When you get to level 100, do you get something special?
No.
Just the thrill of the game, I guess. For the love of the game.
The screen flashes black and you have to confront yourself in the mirror.
God.
So let's do a little broader state of the game discussion.
Okay.
To kind of piggyback off of something I just introduced, the core systems of the game. Last season had a very short campaign. It was very much about rebalancing those core systems that make the game work. And going into Season 5, you have the benefit of all of that work. And the core systems continue to be so strong. The game just felt rewarding to play. It was exciting. The activities were varied. And everything we did, because we played, I think, 5 or 6 sessions to knock out this season, it always felt worth my time.
Yes.
Did you have that sense of cohesion while you were playing?
For the most part, I found myself a little frustrated when the quest objective was just collect the mother's gifts, which is just go fuck around somewhere and get some rewards. I like it encouraging me to go to do things like Helltides and fight world bosses and do dungeons and stuff. And that was cool, but I wanted a bit more interest in that, but otherwise still, once I had done that and gotten the mother's gifts, both the rewards for doing so and the next quest objective were rewarding and encouraging, and it felt worth it. It was like I kind of struggled with the structure and the titling, I guess, but for the most part, really enjoyed that.
It kind of reminds me of adventure mode in Diablo 3, which is where we've spent the majority of our time. We do season play or campaign replays sometimes when we go back to that game.
Just because that campaign is so fun.
But largely you're in adventure mode.
Yeah.
And you're doing the bounties and you're running all those kind of endgame activities.
Nephilim rifts or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like we finally have some of that here.
Yeah.
And because the mechanics of the game are stronger now in Diablo 4 than they were in 3. I mean, even the quality of life things like the ability to dash, or when you select certain activities that have to take place at a certain spot on the map, a little icon will pop up. You can press the map button and it'll take you right there.
Yes.
You don't have to search for it on the map.
Yeah, because I remember, I think season 3, one of our biggest complaints was it's just running around the map. You just got to go to all these places, and it was like so annoying. This was better.
It just, the game at this point feels dynamic,
Yeah.
powerful, and I always feel engaged. I want to talk for a second about leveling. So we finished this season at, I think, level 52.
Yeah, we
like
crossed
that.
50, but we didn't get to 60. I know that.
We
Yeah.
got into Paragon points. And that means that this season has officially, because I've played them all and you've played almost all of them, this season has officially taken us further than any of the other ones have. We've never hit 50 on a seasonal.
I feel like I always ended about 35 at the end of a season. Now, to be fair, we got to World Tier 3 this season because we were incentivized to do so, because we wanted to do the, what are they called? Not the Hell Rifts, the
Infernal Hordes. Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever played World Tier 3 in D4. I think I've only gone up to World Tier 2. So maybe that also contributed to us leveling faster. But I just feel like this season was longer, and not necessarily in time. It just like I feel like I did more, so I had more of an opportunity to level up much more.
Also, you wanted to keep playing. I remember we talked about this at the end of the season 4 discussion. I said we basically knocked down that season in 2 nights. Do you think that's too short? And you were saying, no, it's fun. I like having a couple great nights with this game every 3 or 4 months. This took longer, and I enjoyed it more.
Yes,
I'm not
me
saying
too.
they have to do it this long, but I will play this game obsessively once every 3 or 4 months. I'll do that indefinitely.
Sure.
At this point, because I can play it with you in couch co-op, I am here for the duration.
Yeah, same. Well, and I think like there's something just nice and completionist about level 50, because again, you're crossing into that Paragon thing. So every time I would end a season on like level 35, I'd feel like, but I'm not done yet. But like, I guess I could just keep going to the Hell Tides, but that felt different. Like this just felt like, oh, this all worked out the way it's supposed to. I liked that a lot.
Things are balanced better, so they're challenging but doable. The fact that we did that capstone dungeon to unlock World Tier 3, which is that higher difficulty, all the enemies in there were level 50, 55, something like that.
I say we did it before we were at the suggested level.
Yeah, but I believe we were level 38, something like that. Or
yeah.
maybe 40.
I think not even 40, yeah.
And we could still muscle through.
Yeah,
there were
right.
difficulties. There were choke points where we died a lot. But there wasn't this arbitrary limit on resurrections. And in any of the events where there were arbitrary limits on resurrections, we never bumped up against that.
We made it through. Like, we got close a couple times, but we made it through. And, like, sometimes it was stressful and frustrating, but, like, that's what you want. You don't want it to be easy. You want it to be kind of a challenge. And, oh, okay, I died. You have to make sure you're smart and strategic so you can resurrect me and vice versa.
I never had any of those feelings that I had constantly when I used to play Destiny 2, where I would just get stuck. And it was this miserable solo slog where every time I died, I had to resurrect all the way back where I was and muscle through this thing alone. There was none of that just misery in playing this season. Something else that I noticed that kind of, I think we talked about a couple times while we were playing, was gold. And this is the first time we've ever discussed gold.
It's the first time I've ever thought about gold.
We've never even gone to the armor vendors.
No.
I think in, a year and a half of playing this game, however long it's been now.
No, because you're picking up stuff all the time. Like, you never need to go buy armor. Like, why would you do that?
Every time you have loot you want to get rid of, you just salvage it. And then you get the materials and you make your other gear better. That's fine. But this time, I mean, last season, they kind of broke the gold system, so everyone had millions. I mean, I can't tell you how much money my Gurgle had when we hit level 100. This season, we were both very limited with our gold. So we would go back to Kyovashad and try to upgrade our health potions, and we didn't have enough money.
Right.
So we had
Which,
to
like, never happens unless you're, like, level 2, you know?
Yeah, so we had to make decisions.
Yeah.
We had to sell some gear instead of just immediately salvaging it. it was forcing us to engage with a system
Yes.
in
right.
a new way.
I think that's often been my, not complaint, just a challenge that I've had with both D3 and D4 is like there are a lot of these systems that I just never bothered with because I didn't need to and I didn't feel incentivized to do so. And so I feel like I'm missing out on a part of the game, but also I don't need it and I don't care and I don't quite understand it, so I'm not going to mess with it. And this, I feel like you're right. It's encouraging me to engage and making it fun to engage in these things.
Exactly. That tinkering, that build crafting that was elusive for us for a while.
Yeah.
It now feels easy to understand. It's tangible. When I showed you how tempering works at the beginning of this season, you got so excited.
I did it last season too. But yeah, I had forgotten and it was helpful to get that refresher.
Okay, yes, you'd forgotten. My mistake. But when you go into tempering, and there's that dice roll effect of you pick one of these qualities that you're going to add to gear, and there's a range of what percentage buff it's going to give the item, and then you click on it and you see the little roll, and then you get 50% increased damage to close enemies, or I got 109% increase to distant enemies. That was so much fun.
Yeah.
And every time after we did an activity, you looked over at me like so hopefully, like, can we go back to give shot? Can we temper?
I gotta
and
do
exchange?"
stuff, yeah.
But you were running around interacting with all those systems quickly and easily and maximizing your build the whole time. We didn't have to look up anything. It worked for you. It was intuitive. It was rewarding. It was fun. It was simple. This is what we've been asking for the whole time.
Right.
We're building on the consistency of last season. I think as an overall point here, the whole experience of playing Diablo IV in Season 5 is seamless. It was frictionless. It was deeply integrated. You could feel the systems overlapping and compounding. For the first time, I kind of got it of why this is a live game. Because the game kind of felt alive. It felt reactive. It felt iterative. You could feel the developers tinkering and tweaking and improving things.
Yeah,
I get the sense that the team is... I mean, I know they've been working on it the whole time, but these last couple seasons, it feels like everything they do is improving it. And we're moving towards this like platonic ideal of Diablo IV. I had such a great time with just the core gameplay of this season.
Yeah, I did too. It all felt really like the leveling and the balance, like not balancing, what's it called? I guess when you're meeting enemies that feel like they're the right difficulty for you.
Sure.
Why can't I think of that word?
It doesn't matter.
Whatever. Anyway,
we understand.
That all felt good in ways that I think some seasons they've struggled with. I guess it's balancing. They've had a hard time in other seasons where like things are too easy or too hard and struggling. Like this felt really good. It was really fun to play.
So let's talk about the campaign for a second.
Okay,
we mentioned before that this was a longer campaign than the last few seasonals, and I thought this story, it took longer to finish, but it was also better. It felt more fleshed out. The characters, I mean, we don't need to kind of explore the narrative of it.
Yeah, we're never that
fun.
deep into the narrative, truly. But
Triune, the mother's gifts, the demon cult, all of that was fun.
the guy with the blue hair, Lauren, or whatever his name was, he was fun.
Yeah. Lochran.
Lochran, thank you.
All of it was fun. It was twisty, turny. It was rewarding. It built to a great point. But the thing that I think interests us more is always the gameplay and progression.
Course. Yeah, and like what new thing do I get to interact with this season that I haven't before? That's what I care about.
And apart from the little quest of go do this thing, go back, talk to this guy, go meet these people, go defend this guy, there were multiple choke points throughout the campaign where basically the story stuff ground to a halt. And it said, go collect 500, 1,000, however many mother's gifts. And you could get those by doing basically anything. It was just a directive. It was opening up the board and just telling you, go play. The more difficult the stuff you engage with, the more rewarding, the more, I mean, if you run really hard Hell Tides, you'll get a lot of mother's gifts. Go play and have fun, and then we'll keep going with the story. To pull back to Destiny 2, a lot of live games, this is where they die. These choke points are where people just see a brick wall. They hate the grind. Usually, that's where a game incentivizes you to spend money to get past that grind. They're creating a problem so they can sell you the solution.
Oh, yes. Hate that. I despise that.
It is a small miracle that this grind was fun.
Yeah, no, I never felt like, gosh, this is taking so long. Like sometimes I'd be like, okay, we got a lot to do. We got a lot of mother's gifts to go collect. But I wasn't like, annoyed by that, because
Yeah.
there was still so much to do, and it was like fun and exciting, and I was getting them fast enough that I felt motivated. It was balanced really well.
And a reminder, this season is free. You can
Yeah.
spend money on a battle pass to get more rewards as you progress through the levels there, but it's free.
Right.
And it wasn't pushing you to open your wallet. It was pushing you to go play the game,
Right.
to engage with all of these systems that are constantly improved. So we would go play Helltides. We would do a capstone dungeon to unlock a new world tier. And then when we were on the new world tier, we would collect the Mother's Gifts more efficiently. It was all rewarding gameplay. I can't believe this is how we're talking about a live game.
Wild.
The core of the game is so strong now that the only effect of this grind was to prolong a good time.
Yeah.
One of the new things they added into the game that they kind of pushed you into doing by a little icon on the map was these hell breaches. So
Ooh, these were fun. I liked these.
Yeah, these, and I think we'll get to talk about a game we both love here. So these were micro dungeons. On your map, they're marked with a little leaf marking. They're repeatable.
Like the seasonal symbol, basically, to
Exactly.
indicate this is a special seasonal or seasonally adjusted dungeon for you to do.
Yes, it's. I think it's important to spotlight things like that because
Yeah.
the map is more readable than ever as well.
Yeah, for the most part.
We
Some
would-
things I'm still like, what is that? But
Well,
that's just my own problem.
When we play together, it's certainly readable. But these hell breaches are repeatable.
Yeah.
Their art direction is more kind of thematic and tied into the season. But in between encounters, they have this roguelike risk-reward choice structure. Can you talk about Hades for a second and what you liked about this?
We got to do a Hades episode at some point. I locked deep into Hades about, 3 months ago. It's like, I remember one Sunday, I think all I did was play Hades on my Switch. It was amazing. So Hades
She's
is
a real gamer.
Hades is, if you don't know, it's, how would you describe it? It's a roguelike, action RPG, I guess. Is what
It's
you call
top down. It's
top
isometric
down.
like Diablo.
Yes, right. And it's like got the most beautiful art direction ever. But, it's a roguelike, so you go in and basically it's like you do these runs and you get farther and farther every time. Like you continuously die and do the run again, but there's all these choices. Like at the end of each like little room, you can go into one or two or three different choices, and you go into another room and it tells you what kind of rewards you're going to get, what kind of things you might face.
Maybe you go into a shop. Maybe you go into a boss fight.
Yeah.
You get these little icons for what the next room could represent.
Right. And so then you keep going and going and going. So every run is unique. Not only are like the options that it presents you are different, but there are like multiple options each time. So you're never going to do the same run twice. And it's very rewarding because it's like mini incentives because you beat a room, then you go again. So it's like mini levels and it's delightful and so much fun. And so this was sort of mimicking that at the end, or you get to a certain point in a dungeon and then you had two choices. There were like these hell breaches, like these like openings into hell where it would say like, okay, if you do this, you're going to get this much reward, but like the boss is going to do plus 50 damage to you, or hellfire is going to rain on you, but you'll get this much reward. So you had to like pick. And that was really fun. It kept it fresh and exciting and made you feel like you had agency and involvement in the game and weren't just like kind of passively grinding through.
And where the story campaign is sort of a one and done, right? You can create a new character and run through it again, I guess. But basically, once you complete it, it's over. The Hell Breaches are repeatable. In the same way the Helltides are repeatable and so much better after last season's improvements. You have the capstone dungeon. You have all of these activities. When the campaign ends, the gameplay doesn't end. You're just pushed forward into all of these wonderful, repeatable endgame activities. I think that's important, that idea of a handoff, where it doesn't have to just immediately, the curtain drops and it's done the second the story's over. Because if that were true, no one would ever run to 100.
Right. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm done. And they would stop. Like, it's a hard balance to strike because you want it to feel like the season, like the campaign has ended. I have reached a certain point in the game, but you don't want it to be so closed off that you aren't incentivized to keep going. I feel like this season balanced that really well.
Yes. And the other new activity that they added for this season is the titular Infernal Hordes activity. So this as the name suggests, this is a wave-based horde mode. So you enter this thing and it just keeps throwing enemies and enemies and enemies at you. And at some point you get to make little choices. in what you're going to face next.
Yeah.
And if you make it all the way through, the last wave, you can choose to confront the Fell Council.
It was so cool.
Of big scary demons. And I want to just quickly highlight, this is not just a great new activity that fleshes out this season, it is a permanent addition to the game.
Which is amazing.
This is what we begged for last season.
Mm-hmm.
We were saying all of these seasonal campaigns and activities and aesthetics, they're so much fun. I wish they stuck around.
Right, like the Helltides from season 2. I'm so glad that was season 2, right?
Helltides have always been in the game.
Oh, for real?
I think so.
I'll check that. Whatever. Anyway, I really follow those season 2.
You
Okay, I won't. Whatever. Tell us in the comments below. Help me out. But yeah, no, I like that. And you know what was great about this is it's the title of the season. And so you're thinking about it like the second you start the season. This is the thing they really like advertised and talked about. But you don't get to it until like the last third of the season. I guess it depends on when you get to World Tier 3 and how fast you're progressing in the campaign, but it wasn't the whole season. It was just at the end. So the entire time I was like, okay, I'm having fun in this season, but I still haven't gotten to the big thing. So obviously it made me want to keep playing.
The carrot on the stick.
Yes. And so then when we finally did get to that, it was like, oh shit, this is so cool.
And it felt like an escalation, not just of gameplay and systems, but of the art direction. And this season, God. I mean, the season of the Infernal Hordes, we're leaning into all the hell shit that you and I love.
Yes.
The art direction was amazing going into this.
I mean, you got to go into hell and it looked so cool.
Exactly. And the way this is introduced, this is another one of those handoff moments that I just mentioned, where the very last mission of the campaign is you opening this big-ass door and jumping into hell.
It's the gates of hell. It's amazing.
And running sort of a version of this that kind of introduces, it's not fully the activity, but it's pretty close.
Right. It's like a closed activity to introduce you to it, and then it becomes the thing. Yeah.
So the excitement of a finale of a campaign is then kind of tweaked and adjusted into a repeatable activity.
Very cool.
After we finished the campaign, we ran into the first, normal run of the Infernal Hordes activity. And it was so challenging. Mm-hmm. We died a lot, but we also won. We beat the Fell Council.
There was one really great moment. I think it was in this thing where I think you died. I went to resurrect you. The second you resurrected, I died. Like we kind of kept trading off.
That's
but
the dream, though.
It was rough going, yeah. But we did it. We did it. It was really fun.
It didn't hit those brick walls that we had during the initial campaign playthrough.
Mm-hmm.
It felt as fun, as hectic. The mob density, the art direction. It was as awesome as Helltides were.
Yes.
There's just so much to do now,
mm-hmm.
and it's all fun. The rewards, the choices. I was so involved and excited.
I really feel like I think I said this to you the other day, this season is really thinking about the player. And like, that seems like, of course, they should be thinking about the player, like obviously, but there just felt like a lot of intentionality, both with like this thing we're talking about with the way the season is structured and the incentives and the motivation that you get from it, but also like even little things. Like I noticed when we be in dungeons, and maybe this has always been like this and I just didn't notice it, but like we would like get past a certain point and then it was clear that we could stop here and like go through our inventory and not risk getting attacked, because that's one of the problems I still have with live games, is that they're not pausable unless you like leave your activity and go back to a town. And I find that incredibly inaccessible, but whatever. But I liked that it sort of recognized at a certain point you're carrying too much loot, / you want to go through it, / you've leveled up, you want to like, work on your skill tree or whatever. And it was clear that, okay, this is a safe area where we can do this while we're still in the middle of a dungeon. Like, I just felt like there were little things like that were just quality of life, understanding what it is actually like to play this game and not just like thinking about it in the abstract. And I really appreciated that.
And a lot of those quality of life tweaks were just kind of snuck in.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't loud. It gives you a moment to breathe and do your inventory if you need to, but it doesn't have to spotlight that for you. It just pulls back and gives you a little breathing room. In the same way, I think Diablo, it breaks the immersion a little bit when right before you go into a boss fight, it gives you a big healing well.
Yeah.
It feels like, oh, the game is giving me resources before it gives me a challenge, and it feels a little clunky.
Sure.
I don't know. It breaks the immersion a little bit. It's fine. I'm already suspending my disbelief. But
yeah. I also almost never need those. Although I feel like there was one moment where I really did need that and it wasn't there. And I was like, that was weird.
Yeah, but I really appreciated how in this Infernal Hordes activity, it didn't really have those healing wells.
No.
Instead, if you interacted with the scenery, with the kind of breakable...
Yeah.
Whatever, if there was a weird tentacle or a weird skull or something,
yeah,
if you attacked that and broke it, a bunch of orbs popped out.
Yeah, and sometimes they would break out of actual enemies when you killed them as well. So, yeah.
Oh, by the way, I think you're right. Helltides, I believe, have always been in the game, but they weren't great. There was something in Season 2, it was like a blood marsh or a blood something.
Yeah.
Where it was these patches of the map that were a different color that were awesome.
Okay.
That was the first time.
Maybe that was the evolution of the Helltides. Maybe that's what it was.
The current Helltide feels like those Season 2 blood patch vampire spots.
I think that's why I'm remembering it that way.
I think you're right.
Okay.
That's my little mea culpa.
I appreciate
Let's
that.
talk about our classes.
I know, we haven't even talked about our classes
We have
yet.
a little class update. So last time we both ran Necro.
Yep.
Necro is incredible. It is as good as Rogue.
Yeah.
Those are the two best classes in the game. So that left us with a challenge. There are 3 classes left. There's Barbarian, Sorcerer, and Druid. I ran Druid for a little bit to get through Season 1. I ran Sorcerer in Season 2, and it was kind of up and down, and I hated Barbarian through my campaign playthrough.
Yes, I remember you hated it.
You
So
have not played Druid or Barbarian or Sorcerer?
No. I played Sorcerer, I think, in Season 3, and I was so bored. I was a Fire Sorcerer, and I was just blasting everything with fire, and it was cool, but I was so bored. I tried to do just a campaign run of Druid. I got to maybe level 15. Did not enjoy it. It was frustrating. But this season, and in other seasons, I've played a lot of Rogue and Necro, as y'all know. This season, I played Barbarian, I think, for the first time ever. Definitely in D4. I think I've probably played it in D3 at some point. Didn't love it. It was just kind of I've never been drawn to Barbarian. That was always Cam's class. Especially when I first started playing D3, as if y'all don't know, that was kind of my first real gaming experience, beyond Super Mario. And so I wanted something with range because I didn't want to get up close and die. And that's all you do as Barbarian, is you go right in. And now, I'm much more comfortable. And so this time around, I was like, you know what? I've played a lot of Rogue and Necro. I don't think I'm ever going to like Druid. Sorcerer was and I knew you kind of wanted to play Sorcerer, and it's not fun when 2 people are playing Sorcerer. It's just not fun. They're too similar. So I was like, okay, I'll try Barbarian. And I loved it. I don't know what it was, but I was having the best time. I had a bleed build, and I selected that purely because it's the coolest. Every time I make a decision, it's because that'll be the coolest thing, not because it's well, statistically, I think I could do more damage per se. I do not understand that or care. I just want to look and feel cool. And I did, in fact, look and feel cool.
You did so much damage.
I did. And I was leveling up faster than you, which never happens. What usually happens...
You never died either.
I died a few times. You died more than I did. But what usually happens with me and Cam, I want y'all to know, is Cam is always leveling up about 5 to 10% faster than I am. And it's always so annoying. But that was reversed this time. I was leveling up just a little bit faster, and it was so gratifying for me. I'm sure very frustrating for you, but I enjoyed it. But I had a great time. I was using the leap, all the just all the different blood and slashing and stuff, and my Call of the Ancients. It was a really good time. I loved it.
How were the cooldowns? Were you spending a lot of time waiting?
It was a lot of cooldowns, but they were all I had a good system going. It'd be okay, I'm gonna do my little leap, and that does some damage. I'm gonna do whatever my X was, which kind of stuns everybody. It's a crowd control thing, and then I'll continue to do my my main attack, and then my secondary attack, which requires fury or whatever my resource is.
Not enough fury.
But that refills pretty fast. So it was cooldown, so I was looking a lot at those timers, but I had a good flow going. My favorite thing that happens in Diablo is when you've really figured out the combinations of your abilities, and you're just and you've got a system, and you've got timing, and you know what to do and when to do it. I feel like I fell into that perfect flow with my Crusader in D3, and this I think felt the closest to that. Maybe one of my rogues also was like that too.
That's high praise
for this game, but it was really, really fun. I had a fabulous time.
I feel like the golden rules for you when you're choosing a class, you want to be having fun, you want to look cool, and you don't want to be bored.
Yeah, I don't want to be bored. Why am I wasting my time if I'm bored?
So did Barbarian hit all 3 of those criteria?
Yes, it did. And also, I remember one of the other reasons I never did Barbarian was because they've got too many weapons. And I was I don't even, that's too, I can't possibly concentrate and figure out what the fuck to do with that. But I got over it, and I think maybe this comes from Loot Reborn, but just going through your inventory, it's a lot easier to understand what's happening. And I could easily tell, like, okay, this is going to fill one of those slots, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, I'm sure there were some things I missed. Like, there are certain skills where it's like, you have to be using a slashing weapon and a bludgeoning weapon. And I was like, I'm not going to pay attention to that. I don't care. I never had a problem. It was fine. I'm sure I wasn't doing it in the like most like maximized, optimized way possible, but that's okay. Like, I don't like when you have to be so in it and so like detail oriented and have to maximize and optimize in order to have a good time. I don't like that. And I feel like that's how the initial campaign felt when I was doing my necro. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I feel like I'm doing something wrong, and I hate that feeling. When a game makes me feel stupid, I want to throw it into the ocean. I hate that. This season did not make me feel like that. I felt like I'm cool and I'm having a good time and I know what I'm doing, and that was awesome.
Like we said before, the game is just at this point where it feels frictionless.
Yes, exactly.
I'm so glad you had a good time. I don't think I can go back for a long while
to Barbarian.
I am so glad you had a good time with that.
Cool. Tell us about your sorcerer, Cam.
Yeah, so on the other hand, we were choosing between these three sort of inferior classes. I knew I wasn't ready for Barbarian. I was having flashbacks. So it was between Sorcerer and Druid. I think I do want to run a Druid again soon, but I had those great memories about Season 2, which is probably because of the vampires more than the Sorcerer, but I was a fire build. I tried to be a fire build, and about halfway through, because I think I did a full campaign playthrough back then. I don't remember.
I think you might. Well, you did a full campaign sorcerer while we were doing the campaign. You did a solo campaign.
Okay, so
run.
I did do the campaign.
Yeah, you did a solo campaign while we were also doing our co-op campaign.
Right. So I spent
you
a
had
lot
a barb
of time,
and a sorcerer going. Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time as a sorcerer, and I was excited about that fire build. You get to basically just endlessly blast fire. It's kind of this like you stop dead and you just fire this machine gun of flames. It's awesome.
It is cool.
You get to summon this fire hydra. It looks cool. It's fun. It fulfills a fantasy. About halfway through that first experience, that build just stopped being effective. I was just getting crushed by everything I was going up against.
When that was early days, they were doing a lot of adjusting as people were responding and giving feedback after the game had launched.
So at that point, at the state of the game where it was back then, I had to look up a build, and I ended up doing a shock build for the sorcerer. And that was fun. I liked the crackling electricity. I liked all the lightning tendrils. That was fun. So this time I tried that build again. I tried all the lightning, and I got so sick of it. You hated it. I felt like none of it was synergizing. I was just waiting on cooldowns. I wasn't quick. I wasn't doing damage, and I was against you, just bashing things to death.
I felt so bad because I was having such a great time and like leveling up quickly, and I was like, "How are you doing?" And you were like, "Eh." It felt so bad.
It was boring. It wasn't cool. It wasn't fun. It failed all three of your criteria. So I just hated that experience. So I took a risk. I went outside of my comfort zone and I switched over to an ice build. And this is when I had a bunch of points. So I switched over from all electric to all ice.
Fully respect, yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was so much fun, and it synergized so well with your Barbarian.
I think so too. Yeah, we just fell into a really good flow between us. It was great.
It was almost a role reversal where I became the ranged build and you were melee.
It felt like the first time you played D3, like 10 years ago. That's how it felt.
More than that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it became so dynamic because I was quick. I was dancing around. I could do melee damage or I could fire from a distance and be ranged.
Yeah.
The cooldowns were always short. I felt powerful. I felt effective. I could do this big... You would do all this up-close damage, so I would run in and hit this ability that turned me into a big-ass ice cube, like the iceberg that took down the Titanic.
Right.
And I would freeze everyone around me, so you could just destroy them while they were frozen.
Exactly. Like the best that would happen is you would freeze all of these people, and then I would use my my left trigger with some kind of blood, like area of effect skill, and it would just like annihilate everybody because they were already frozen and like stunned from whatever you had done, and that would just finish them off. Like it was seamless. It was beautiful.
Or I could hold back and just fire all of these blasts. I think they were called ice blades. It very much felt like the rapid fire ability for the Demon Hunter in Diablo 3.
I miss the Demon Hunter so much.
That's what I'm saying. This kind of felt like that for me.
Yeah.
So I had a fantastic time with an ice sorcerer, weirdly enough.
Yeah, and I remember we had even like joked like ice is the worst like you attack. It's so boring. Like, oh, I just made everybody cold. But it actually ended up working great. I also at one point got a pair of legendary boots that the path behind me would be frozen, and so it would kind of like slow down or freeze enemies or something. And so I just liked that it ended up kind of complimenting you, just like in this little silly way. No, it all worked together really nicely.
And the further we got into the campaign, as the art direction really ramped up towards the finale, and we were in these hell breaches and infernal hordes and all these big fiery doors, doing ice damage, like the color contrast looked really cool.
It did, especially down in hell. It's true. Doing like a fire build in hell is like, groundbreaking.
Yeah.
You know, it's boring
and
it blends in, and then it's like you don't feel special, like you're doing anything. I just think like I think sometimes people underestimate the power of just feeling cool. Like even if like I am doing the exact same amount of damage or more with a build or skill that feels less interesting, I don't care. Like I want to look and feel like I'm doing something and like I'm cool and having an effect.
You're
like,
totally right.
That's what you want. I think that's really essential, and I think people can forget that.
I also think that's the bread and butter of the franchise.
Yes, right, because it's such a like dramatic gothic fantasy. Like you want it to feel over the top. Like at one point we were trying to get Mother's Gifts, so we went and did a world boss in a Helltide, and that's was those things that like spawn at a certain time, and then all these players come together and defeat this thing, and it usually takes about 10 minutes. And so Cam, you put on, I think it was a Black Sabbath song. Was that what?
Yes.
Yeah, that we were playing. And so we just like listened to that while we played, and it just felt so over the top and cool and fun. And it was a delightful
operatic
time.
And silly and gothic. And
exactly.
There were a dozen of us just railing against
just
these
killing all these demon
mobs.
things. Yeah, it was so much fun.
It was a great time.
It was a good time.
So a couple wrap-up questions to close things out here. On the note of what we were just discussing, after 5 seasons of Diablo IV, of tinkering and improving and overhauling, how many great classes are there? We've got Rogue, Necro, Barbarian, Sorcerer, Druid. Which of those classes are great at this point?
I think Rogue has always been and is always great. I've played it in different times and in different ways, and it's been more and less fun, but it's still like I think the most consistently fun class. I think Necro has become a great class. It was not at the beginning, as we remember, but it has become great. Barbarian was great this time around, but I know you struggle with it so much, and I don't know what it was like in seasons 1 through 4.
Well, I'm saying at this point, which are the great classes?
Those 3.
Okay.
Would you include Sorcerer in there?
I mean, I like the ice build, but until I see evidence that the fire and electricity builds are as good, I don't know if I can call it great.
I just feel like it's been so inconsistent. Because I also struggle with Sorcerer in whichever season that was. I think 2 seasons ago. Just didn't love it.
And I know a lot of people played Druid this season. That's sort of obviously a blind spot for us.
Yeah.
Maybe that one's great now.
I hope so.
But I can comfortably say, I mean, I can't. You can comfortably say that Barbarian's great.
Yeah.
And I can say that Rogue and Necro and part of Sorcerer are great.
Yeah.
To have all of these tenable options, that's a huge step up.
That is, because I feel like for a while it was like the only good one is Rogue. And now I feel like it's getting there. It's getting there.
And I believe that the next season, season 6, is going to launch in October with the new expansion, which is called Vessel of Hatred. Before we talk about the Spiritborn class, at this point, are you more excited for the new campaign or the new class?
The new class.
Okay.
Because I've tried all the classes at this point. I love new things. And like the campaign, like the stories in Diablo are fun and important. But like we said, the gameplay itself is much more important, at least for me. And so the new class is what I'm most excited for, especially all the stuff I've seen about it.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So we've seen
talked about this.
Trailers, interviews. I've
watched a lot of stuff on this.
Yeah.
I've done lots of deep dives into this.
So what do you think of the Spiritborn? And are you going to play it next season and through the campaign?
Absolutely. Of course. Why would you not? Of course I'm going to do that. Yes, I'm absolutely going to play the Spiritborn. I like that there's a lot of variety within it. It feels different than something Diablo has ever done. I like that they clarified this is not just a demon hunter. Like, this is different. And I like that. I like that they're expanding out, which I kind of feel like is what they did with Rogue. Although, was Rogue an option in like an earlier Diablo game that I don't know about?
Probably.
It felt new and fresh to me, so I liked it. And it had similarities to Demon Hunter, sure, but it was different enough. I like that it's new and fresh. I like that it's like leaning into these like different cultural influences that we haven't really seen in Diablo.
And
I
there
like
are these
that.
animals.
Yes,
Okay,
right.
Just to kind of lay it out, there's like, you can lean into these skills based on animals. There's a centipede. There's an eagle.
It's a raven, I
Raven?
think.
Some sort
No,
of
it's an
bird?
eagle. It's an eagle. It's
Okay.
an eagle, a centipede, a jaguar, and a gorilla.
Yes, yes.
You know what this feels like to me? This feels like grown-up witch doctor from Diablo 3.
Ooh,
Like, because
interesting.
Diablo 3 also, that's the first class I ever played, because you get all these companion animals that help you. Also, I love animals, and it was great. And that was really cool, and I loved it. But this feels like, no, you don't just have a helper. You like become and are part of these animals. And it just feels like you as the player, as the individual, are more involved. And like you have these, and you can also combine them, which is fun, or you can lean into one different animal. And I feel like it's appealing to different playing styles and interests. It's very expressive and like colorful, like Diablo 3. Like they're not afraid of color. It just looks really like fun and new and fresh and interesting. Are you excited about it? What are you going to do?
Yeah, I think I'll play it just to try it out. And it feels like some of the campaign is kind of thematically designed around similar ideas and cultures.
Like, I think we're going to be in jungles and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fun.
So
you seem less excited about the new class than I am.
I think I could make the argument for playing a different season, just to play devil's advocate for a second. Because the core systems are so good, I am excited. I imagine I will play the campaign for the expansion with my other classes. If I can take Gurgle, my level 100 Necro, through that, I definitely will.
Oh, okay.
Because the systems are so good, I want to play new content with all of those great systems popping off.
I see.
But yes, I am excited for a new thing. And the team seems really excited for Spiritborn, and that kind of makes me more excited.
We haven't talked about the little companions.
Yes, you have dogs
It's
now.
just it's small and stupid, and like the dogs don't do anything. They just follow you and look cute. But I love it. I love having a little fellow with me, even if he's not doing anything.
Yes, you do. I saw the glee on your face when you unlocked
and I know
the dog.
I think we're gonna get more companion options in the expansion as well. So and I know if you've like pre-ordered, you can already unlock the little snow leopard and stuff. But whatever. Anyway, so that'll be fun.
So I want to end with a little coda here. So
Okay.
I have been drawn into this reflective space lately on the show. Apologies if you're not into that. But Diablo IV has been part of our life for a year and a half now. This franchise has been part of, the two most important friendships in my life forever, between you and Tristan. I have such strong memories around this franchise, and that means I get even more happy in sort of a more meaningful way when the franchise is in a good place. When I can sit down and have a great few days with you playing this new season. I'm so happy that Diablo 4 is doing great. I'm proud of our coverage, not to kind of toot our own horn, but I'm proud of our coverage that we celebrate the stuff that's good, and we honestly, constructively try to give feedback on the stuff that doesn't work. I think we've done what we've set out to do here, but obviously I much prefer when things are in a good spot.
Of course.
But since we did our last Diablo 4 episode, the other live game that I've talked about throughout most of these conversations, Destiny 2, has basically imploded. So the studio has undergone multiple massive layoffs in the past year. Bunch of money. They missed all of their revenue projections by like 45%. It was bought out by Sony, and the company was restructured and massively downsized. And then they released, in amidst that whole mess, they released The Final Shape, which is the expansion that's supposed to be the culmination of 10 years of storytelling and gameplay and this whole world that they've built up. And I didn't play it. I played like the first mission that you kind of get for free as like a demo, and then I just backed away because it doesn't feel good anymore. They haven't improved and iterated that world like I've wanted. I mean, I hear great things about the Final Shape. Apparently, they have done like the Loot Reborn overhauls for a lot of Destiny, but I don't feel good about playing it. Everything I read about upper management is just awful. The game is not great for PvE content, which is story-based, not against other people.
Oh, okay.
Just kind of going against activities and the world. It's player versus environment.
Okay, I was wondering what the E stood for. Okay, gotcha.
The solo content, basically.
Yes.
With a story focus. That is still a shallow pool. And it doesn't feel like a good investment of time. I feel like I have to create fun because there's not that much of it there.
That sucks.
Versus and I've consequently just sort of fallen off the game.
And it's so sad because you love Destiny. You've loved it for a long time.
It has the best minute-to-minute action and gameplay mechanics of probably any game I've ever played. But that's now out of date. That comment is now out of date because I don't know what the new expansion is like. I'm sure I'll get to it eventually, but right now I feel so bad about that franchise. I just don't want to spend my time or money there. Versus going back to Diablo IV, these last 2 seasons, grinding a necro to level 100, not because I had to,
Right.
just because I kept having fun. There's near endless PvE content. I can play it with you in couch co-op.
Love that.
There's a great flow. All of the classes are fun. I can control the difficulty. I don't hit those shitty, miserable choke points. I can up my world tier if I want to, and even then, I can still muscle through anything I want to. It constantly feels like Diablo's moving in the right direction, where Destiny isn't. One of the first teams that they laid off during the recent wave was the narrative team.
Not good.
And now they're going to have these little piddly, they're not going to do big expansions anymore. It's just moving in the wrong direction. So as I've been kind of mourning and moving away from Destiny, I love that Diablo is more welcoming and more of the kind of flavor of what I want from a live game than ever.
Yeah.
It's familiar, it's fun, it's fresh, it's exciting, it's cooperative. It is that gothic fantasy. I don't know. I'm sad about Destiny, but I'm so happy about where Diablo is right now.
Yeah, that contrast, I think, heightens both of them in their respective directions more. So, yeah, I'm so sad for you that that's been what happened with Destiny, but really thrilled that this is the direction Diablo's going. I am very hopeful about this expansion.
Yeah.
I mean, when they announced it, I was excited, obviously, but as the seasons have gotten better and I've just seen good things, I'm really excited about it. I'm quite hopeful.
October. Spooky season.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Very excited. So let us know down in the comments.
Yes.
You can comment on YouTube or Patreon, or if you're listening on Spotify, I guess you can email us, secondbreakfastpod@gmail.com.
But if you're not watching on YouTube, the YouTube video has our gameplay in the background.
Yes, it
so,
does.
I mean, you've already heard the whole episode, but go watch it. Watch us play the game. It's fun. Watch how cool I look.
What class did you play for this season?
Yes.
What did you think? What do you think of the new activities, the Infernal Hordes, the Hell Breaches? What do you think of the endgame and the core systems? What was your experience? We had a couple comments on the last couple videos saying someone had been playing the early gameplay of the new season and said, I think you guys are really going to like this.
Oh, cool.
And that gave us a beacon of hope at a dark time.
Yes.
If you're that guy, what did you think of this season?
Tell us.
It's about the community in the comments as much as it is just us rambling here. So thank you very much for listening, for joining us, and we will see you back in a few days with a brand new episode, but also back in October to discuss the next season, to talk about Vessel of Hatred. Again, I'm so happy to say this. There's a lot of Diablo on the horizon.
There sure is. And if you haven't heard our other Diablo episodes, we got a whole playlist on YouTube, or you can just find it in our other episodes. They've just been coming out as the seasons have progressed.
And we did a big Diablo 3 retrospective with Tristan. He was also there through the whole campaign with all of those discussions.
That's right. He was on all of those. Yeah. He wasn't there for the seasons, but he was for the campaigns.
Right.
So it was fun.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll be back in just a few days with another brand new episode.
Bye.